I'm Christian Grönroos, and this talk is part of a series of Principles of Service Management lectures. And the topic is the service profit logic and its implications for management. It's important to realize that for a service firm, a firm that takes a service perspective, regardless of whether actually it is by definition a service firm or a product manufacturer, but it takes a service firm, it takes a service approach to its customers and wants to support and facilitate its customers' practices, processes, activities, then this firm earns money in a different way than a product manufacturer. In a different way, meaning that profits is a result of revenues and costs. And revenues come for different reasons than what is said in traditional management and especially marketing models. And costs occur for different reasons. That is said in traditional management models. Or to be a little bit more specific, costs are not something that can be treated as simplistically as in traditional management models. With that, I mean you can't just try to be cost efficient without thinking about the revenue effects of your actions. So, this is a simple but absolutely not simplified starting point here, because it's like this. If you have more revenues than costs, you're making a profit and you can remain in the business if you're not mismanage capital, of course. And if you have higher costs than revenues, you are soon out of business. So it's an important starting point. And it's important to understand the logic here. How do we manage this equation when we are a service business? So let's look into this. And let's first look at something here, the interface between the firm or any organization or the customers, consumers, users. How does it look like? Here is a comparison between goods, consumer goods, more specifically, which is an extreme among goods manufacturers, and then service firms, service organizations, services. The whole circle here is the total customer interface, or illustrates a total customer interface. And the area with the lines here, that becomes a little bit grayish here, that's what traditional marketing, that is the marketing department together with sales and sales department is managing, is taking care of, can take responsibility for, and can influence. That's the realm of traditional marketing and sales. And if we look at traditional consumer goods management, we can see that the marketing specialist and the sales specialist can take care of and manage most of the existing firm customer interface. There's really no much contacts beyond what the marketing department is planning and doing. Got all the marketing mix. We all know about the 4 Ps, and they perform fairly well in consumer goods. Previously very well, and still in an acceptable way. So managing marketing can be given to one department or one function. And therefore we talk about marketing management, because it's taking care on the side of other business functions, like managing logistics, managing production and operations, managing personnel, human resource management, managing finances, and so forth. Now, if you look at the service firm, the interface between the user, consumer, that is the customer, and the firm grows. And it's big. It can be most of this interface that is outside the realm of the traditional marketing department. What I mean with growing is that the part of the interface that is in the hands of other business functions than traditional marketing and sales grows, and it's very big. And what's the implication of this? Well, traditional marketing and sales can't manage customers very well, because customers will be influenced by other business functions. And this is the case when we are, for example, going to a restaurant. We may have seen an ad even, but more probably some other way being made aware of that there's a new restaurant someplace. But some traditional type of marketing, and it may be also word of mouth, somebody told us, go there, there's a new place. That makes us buy the restaurant service once, probably. Then we go there. Now, if we want to continue patronizing this restaurant, depends totally on what goes on in that restaurant. It depends on how are we being served, how is the atmosphere, how is the surrounding there, the quality of the food and the drinks, and the fellow customers that also go there to this restaurant. That is what makes us think that we probably would like to go back, that is, buy again. Not only buy once this service, but continue buying from time to time from this restaurant. Could be any type of service establishment, but just using restaurant as an example. Now, the initial ad or any piece of information that made us buy the first time, go to the restaurant, that's here. That's the area of the customer firm interface of the restaurant that the marketers can be responsible for. Whereas the rest, the big area here in the circle, is what makes us buy the second time and the third time, and probably or perhaps makes us loyal to the restaurant. Or in the worst case, makes us decide never go back. I really don't like this place. Service bad, food's bad, drink served slowly, wrong people there, atmosphere not nice, so we don't come back. So what can we learn from that? That is traditional marketing and sales can do a little bit about getting customers and keeping customers. They can do the getting customers part. But as to the keeping customers part, traditional marketing and sales have a very marginal role. Sometimes more to say, sometimes less. Very often really no effect of what they are doing on customers' decisions to continue buying from a service organization or service business. So this means that when we think about this issue of having customers, traditional marketing is not enough, and sales as part of that is not enough. We have to really understand what's the customer influenced by, what makes the customer feel that I think this is high enough quality, I like to come back, I want to buy again, and even perhaps become a loyal customer. And if the customer wants to come back and come back again, he will do something else which is very important for the service organization, any firm, restaurant in this example case. He will start talk about it, tell friends that there's this new place, I was there even twice and it's really great. And he will write in social media perhaps about this in a positive way. Or the other way around, if he doesn't like it, he or she may tell about that, hey, don't go there, I made a mistake, and may write about that in social media again and just suggest that leave that restaurant there, don't go near it. So we need to take this very seriously when trying to manage the profit equation for service, because profit comes for customers that want to buy regardless of whether they buy the first time or the second, third, fourth, fifth time. And it's more important that customers continue buying that they bought the first time. But if we never buy the first time, we will never become customers. So traditional marketing and sales has an important role here, of course. But what I'm saying is it is not enough. So let's look at the profit logic, which I consider the most fundamental element of service management and marketing. Let's start with the product business situation. A product manufacturer that performs as a product manufacturer. There's the interface between the customer and the firm is more or less in the hands of traditional marketing and sales. Salespeople and advertising, price offers, and all what the 4 Ps include. Revenues, they come from then effective sales and marketing. And remember, in the marketing mix, the product is one of the elements. So the product is there, of course, the basis for getting revenues, for making customers buy. But then also the other marketing mix elements there. So revenues come from there. And costs, well, cost is the result of how other business functions function. What resources are used, how cost-efficient resources are used, how cost-efficient operations are used, how do we manage to squeeze out bureaucracy and overlapping activities and so forth. So it's fairly simple to manage, and that's why traditional management models are really based on a quite simple foundation, and that is revenues come if we have good sales and marketing and they have a good product to use. And then costs can be kept under control if we manage the other business functions from a cost efficiency point of view. And these two do not meet. What influences revenues and what influences costs? There are different business functions that take care of that. Of course, manufacturing and product development here gives the product to marketing and to sales. But the point here is that there's no contacts between customers and production operations in a factory, for example. So it's not part of the interface between the firm and the customer. And this is the traditional case, even still the normal case. But of course this changes in ways that parts of operations, part of manufacturing, parts of product development is something that many firms bring the customer into. And various types of CAD/CAM techniques, modular manufacturing like that is ways of opening up operations and manufacturing to some extent for the customer. For example, when you can go in and decide how parts of the interior of a car would look like if you buy this car, or you can go in and decide about how do we put together various parts of some clothing, for example. Levi's was earlier a very often used case about modular manufacturing and marketing. You can decide that I want the jeans to look like this, 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 and this. So in that ways, the interface here opens a little bit up, but for the customer, and has a direct influence on revenues as well. The customer's willingness to say, I want to buy this Levi's or that car or so, because I can get involved in some part of the design of the product. But this is not the traditional or the normal case, I should say, not even today. The normal case is like this. And even with this special case I was talking about, it tends to be in this direction. If we look at then a service business, how does this look? Well, it looks differently. And what makes the difference is based on the previous slides of the content of the customer-firm interface in service business as compared to product business. And that is, there's so much of the other business functions outside the traditional marketing and sales functions, outside the traditional marketing and sales department, that the customers will meet, see, be influenced by, and use as a criteria for purchasing decisions in the future. Will I buy again and again? Will I become a loyal customer or not? Will I talk positively or negatively about this firm, and so forth? I mentioned how about the restaurant as an example. The same with any service establishment, any service firm, be that a commercial firm or an organization in the public sector, be that business to consumer or business to business. Even if it's consumer to consumer situation, it can be explained in the same way. For example, consumer to consumer marketplaces on the internet. But let's stay now with business to consumer or business to business situations. So we see it a lot. There's an interactive part of the other business functions. That it goes on in the restaurant. That what goes on in a classroom. That what goes on when I visit the bank office or when I operate my computer to pay bills. That's what goes on when I'm checking in at the airport, at the desk or using a machine. And that's what goes on when I'm driving or rather traveling with the bus or train. That's going on when. But also in product situations. That goes on when this large firm that is very successful in marketing loudspeakers, that can make money because although they have the highest price in the marketplace, and they can make money because they take care of their customers so very well. When delivering, when informing the customer, when invoicing it, when everything is arranged so that customers feel that, hey, this supports my processes of inbound logistics, or warehousing, of using loudspeaker, or checking invoices and paying them, and controlling my costs, and so on and so forth. And we can find examples everywhere where firms that perform according to a service perspective, that are service businesses, regardless of whether they are service firms by definition or product manufacturers that have adopted a service perspective or service logic, they perform in a way that opens up an interactive part of other business function than the traditional sales and marketing functions. And this interactive part will influence revenues, because depending on how customers perceive that all these in the contacts works. Let's go back to the restaurant example, with the waiter, with the barman, which can be female also, of course, and with the atmosphere, with the processes, with the food, with the seating, with the tables and chairs, with the music they play, with the fellow consumers. That is the interactive part, and that is something that has a heavy, a determined effect on the restaurant's possibilities to get revenues. And that arrow is missing when we look at the profit logic in a product business context. Then there is an interactive part, staying in the restaurant. That's what goes on in the kitchen. If we are ordering, for example, some special food, and we just say that you have menus here, and you have set menus, but we'd like to combine this from the menu with that from the other menu. What does the waiter says? Now, what does the waiter say? Now, the waiter is in the interactive part. Depending on if she says yes and no, and how she does it, or how he does it, will perceive this either all right, we perhaps like the quality here, or not so far. And the waiter probably says that, all right, that's fine, we can do that. And after a while, the waiter comes back and says, I'm sorry, in the kitchen they say they can't do it, you have to stay with the set menus. Then our initial high quality perception will go down. What a place is this? Lack of flexibility. Why can't they do it? I mean, they have all the food stuff there. They just want to annoy me. So that's what the supportive part here is all about. What's beyond the screen, what the customer doesn't see and meet, but which indirectly influences what people and systems serving us in the interactive part can do for us and with us. So that means that the supportive part also has an influence on revenues and the possibility to get revenues. I remember the case in the restaurant that everything went well until the beef was served. And it looks also nice. And the way it was served was no problem. The waiter was doing very well. But it was absolutely tasteless. There was really no spices used. No salt, no pepper, nothing. So I told the waiter that, hey, this is absolutely tasteless. Now then she has, it was a she, has a possibility to recover the situation or make it into a total disaster. She didn't manage to recover it. She said, we have a new cook. So I knew then that there is an interactive part and a supportive part, and both are trying to make me not come back and give more money, more revenues to this firm, this restaurant. So we have to think about this. Not everything that the customers interact with is important for the customer's willingness to pay money to us. But also these interactive resources and functions behind the, as it's called in the literature, line of visibility, are important for the customer's willingness to continue buying. Then of course there can be, and there is of course, an invisible part. Invisible from the point of view of the customer. I mean, supportive part is also invisible. This is totally invisible because it doesn't influence the customer and the customer's willingness to pay. Now, it's the red arrow here that it makes the critical difference between a product management and a service management situation. Because when the red arrow is lacking, you can keep revenue management and cost management apart. But when there is a red arrow there, you cannot do that. So let's look a little bit further into this. Again, explaining it or describing it with a little bit different terms. Again, starting with the product profit logic. Revenues is a consequence of how externally effective the firm is. That is, managing revenue through quality management and traditional marketing and sales. We have high enough quality products or service activities, and then we have good marketing and sales. And in this case, more product. But as I've said, there are service firms that make themselves product firms by talking about our products, doing campaigns about our products, making service employees realize that we shouldn't really consider the customer relationship very much because we should push our service activities. Such service firms are not service businesses. They are product businesses. But moving back here, external effectiveness creates revenues, internal efficiency influences costs. Now, internal efficiency, that is managing costs through productivity management. That's how costs normally managed. We need to be productive. Now, the service profit logic will add the thick red arrow to this picture. So again, we see external effectiveness influences revenues, but internal efficiency also influences revenues, which it doesn't in the traditional management case from a product context. And if we try to apply traditional management models regarding both marketing and productivity on a service business, we certainly are in trouble because we are going to take the wrong actions. And more about that shortly. But let's look at this a little bit closer. What are the implications really of the service profit logic? Well, basically two implications, and I'm going to go further into what they really mean for various parts of management after this. But the first thing is that external effectiveness and internal efficiency are interrelated in a service business, which they, according to traditional product management models, basically are not. And in management, effects on costs and revenues cannot be totally separated and kept apart. They have to be managed together. They can't be managed through separate processes, as very much is indicated in according to traditional management knowledge. And this again has considerable implications. So let's look at them quite briefly here now first. First, marketing management. It's clear that marketing, including sales, can't be managed by traditional marketing departments only, because so much that has a marketing effect goes on outside the realm of the traditional marketers and salespeople. Take the restaurant example, for example. And quality management. Well, internal quality management, which is how quality typically is managed in firms, is not enough, because it misses the point that functional quality from the customer's point of view is an integral part of the quality perception and must be managed as well. But that is easily left outside quality management. Now then, looking at capacity management and human resource management. Capacity management meaning how much resources should we have, how much people, how much other types of resources and so forth. It looks internally at the business, and that can't cope with situations where customers come and go. Sometimes there's more customers, sometimes there's less customers, as there is for any service establishment. So traditional capacity management model can't cope with external effects on quality. External effects of quality following from having too little resources or sometimes too much resources. That probably doesn't have a negative effect, but sometimes can. Now, human resource management. Well, traditional models tend to pay insufficient attention to the external effects of employee behavior. Human resource management more is about hiring people and creating career paths and managing the roles of people in the business. Training and supervisory control, rewarding and all like that from internal point of view, and misses the point to a large extent of what are the external effects of the people on the people that are interacting with customers in a service business. And finally, productivity management, which I think is most dangerous of them all, because traditional models used for managing productivity is based on the assumption that internal actions on cost efficiency do not have external effects, doesn't have an effect on customers' perception of quality, and therefore doesn't have an effect on customers' willingness to pay, therefore doesn't have an effect on revenue management. That's something for marketing and sales, traditional marketing and sales. And this is because there is what can be called a constant quality assumption in traditional productivity models. An assumption is saying that however we are changing resources in our production and administrative processes, we are not going to influence the level of quality that comes out of them. But in reality, it turns out that it does, because of the thick red arrow on the previous slides. So these are areas of management that have to be paid attention to carefully. Now, from now on, I'll continue to look about some of these issues, but not at all of them. Now, some implications of product-based management in service context. And there will be negative consequences, as could be assumed from the previous slide, on perceived quality, on customer satisfaction, on internal atmosphere in the firm, on corporate image, and on real productivity. Real productivity, not the manufacturing cost efficiency type of productivity, which really is not what productivity is all about, but how it is understood and often managed. So traditional product-oriented management models easily create what I've called a strategic management trap. So let's look at this strategic management trap. Let's say that a firm has some financial problems, or there may be some other problems or any sort, increasing competition, new competitor coming in, or anything like that. But it could only be just that we don't do so well. That's a financial problem. The normal first action, according to traditional management models from the product sector, will say that let's take actions now to try to be more cost efficient. And in a service business, what does this mean? It most often means people. Because even today, in not all, but most service businesses, people is the resource that costs most. Or at least there's most people there. And people are a variable cost. Whereas other resources, systems, machinery, buildings are fixed costs. So people are easy to move. The people resource is easy to do something with, to be more cost efficient, to get costs down. So probably the first action is, and it normally is directed towards, let's become more internally efficient, let's look at the largest cost we have, people. Now what happens is this, that perceived service quality starts to deteriorate. Customer starts to realize that the persons I'm used to talk to aren't there anymore, which means that I have to tell them every time who am I instead of being known when I come back to the bank or any place. Or it takes longer time. They don't understand me, and there are less people than before. There are more machines than people, and I would like to have more people and less machines. That even in these technology times, even most customer segments would like more people than machines, but they like machines too. Nobody would like to be without internet banking, for example. So we must not take that as an excuse for not having the people part of service businesses. Now, following deteriorating service quality, we're going to have dissatisfied customers. Now, dissatisfied customers will show it, which means that the work atmosphere will start to deteriorate. People don't really like the workplace anymore. First of all, management tells us that we are unnecessary. And secondly, customers tell us that we can't really do our job, because they show that they are not satisfied with it. And deteriorating working atmosphere leads to continuously decreasing service quality, because it will show in the customer interfaces, in the interactions with the customer. It will lead to lower interest in doing our best as a service employee for the customer. We don't have the time, but we don't really have the energy either, and we don't really have the attitude anymore, because we're shown by management that we're not really important. And secondly, the customers only create problems for us by being nasty, telling us that they don't like the service and things like that. Now what then often happens is that management realizes we have to do something, and that means they turn to the traditional profit logic model and says marketing and sales is responsible for revenues, so let's add some more to the marketing budget. More advertising, more sales, change advertising agency, or things like that. Even going down with price. But customers will still be dissatisfied. The customers are not dissatisfied because we don't tell them eagerly enough something through advertising. They are dissatisfied because the service quality is not high enough. The service doesn't function. So the interesting thing here is more traditional marketing increases costs again. But of course costs start to increase also when atmosphere deteriorates in the firm, because people start to get sick and they have to be replaced and all those things. So in the end, we realized that the corporate image has started to deteriorate also. And we see it by what people talk, what people write in social media, and we see it in even more lost customers. And this leads to financial problems and problems with competitions. And if the financial problems in the beginning were minor, or we just thought that let's do something so we don't run into problems, we will be into problems once we come to the end here. And we have lost revenues, and the cost savings are marginal, if any cost savings, and we have quality problems. And this is the service management, the strategic management trap in service businesses when applying a traditional product management approach to how to handle a situation where we need and want to stay competitive or regain lost competitiveness through various reasons, whatever they are. So what to do? Well, take a service-oriented approach to management. Now, what would that mean? Well, we need to take the service profit logic seriously. And if, let's say, the problem is financial or any problems of any type, and we are, as managers, looking at how to handle this, then the first thought must be related to the thick red arrow connecting other business functions than marketing and sales to revenue management. And we must think about how to improve the customer-fur interactions, how to improve external efficiency, so we can make sure that we get more revenues, or at least can secure the revenues we have if we see competition growing all the time. But of course, this must be done with cost control, otherwise it won't work either. But it's a matter of approach and mental thinking first. Revenues are more important than costs. Traditional management seems to be based on a thinking that costs are more important than revenues, because revenues will come in the end. But in service, revenues won't come in the end. Revenue management is more important than cost management. But cost management is absolutely important as well. But we have to get the relation correct. Revenue management first, and then see how can we do it without increasing costs so that we in the end do a bad business. So that got to be the starting point. And what that follows is this, more or less. And we can see it almost as a regular case, that this is how it works. Quality will be controlled and probably even improved. From that we will have more satisfied customer, or at least equally satisfied customer as before, but probably more satisfied. Now that will work in two ways. Internally, it will improve the atmosphere in the firm, the workplace atmosphere. But it will also improve the corporate image, because customers that are more satisfied will again feel that this is a better firm than before, and they will spread the news. And improving workplace atmosphere will improve service quality as perceived by customers, because people feel that hey, the management supports us, believes in us, and we get training and new ideas of how to work, and this is going to show in the interface, and the customers will perceive it as higher functional quality, especially, meaning the quality that follows from the process of being involved in consuming the service. And higher service quality, well, that will also have a positive effect on corporate image, and that is increased sales volumes. Now, improved working atmosphere has other effects on service quality as well. It's not only that the employees has more time and more knowledge even perhaps, they also get more energy to serve customers, because they feel that we are needed here, we are supported here, and we are giving the means of taking care of the customer interfaces. And that also has an effect of service quality as perceived by customers. And all this needs to a situation where we can increase the sales volume, or at least maintain the sales volume and the price level that we have. And that again can be expected to lead to more revenues, improved internal atmosphere, and costs are under control, because that's part of the process. Now this is the managerial approach that should be taken by a firm or an organization in the public sector who considers itself a service business or service organization. Not the traditional approach that starts with how can we increase internal efficiency, that is, how can we decrease costs in our processes, but instead look at how can we improve or at least maintain the interfaces with customers, the firm-customer interactions, and do that, of course, with cost control. And if we don't follow this service-oriented management approach, it leads to problems. I was about to say more often than not leads to problems, but that's wrong. It leads to problems. It's just in the marginal case it works. So being here, what then does it really mean in terms of management thinking, the management attitude, when we say that you have to think seriously about the service profit logic and use that as a starting point for managerial actions. And the managerial actions will be first think about how to get revenues by improving or at least maintaining the firm-customer interaction. So let's look at that now, coming towards an end of this talk. There are two basic shifts in focus compared to traditional management models when we talk about service management. The first one is a shift on the management level and then in the whole organization from an interest in internal implications of performance to an interest in external implications or for customers of what the firm is doing. Now this may sound as not such a big deal, but it really is a very big deal. And it's an important thing. But because it's very normal that managerial attitudes are towards the internal implications of how we manage other business functions than traditional marketing and sales. Because that it was the product profit logic says that is how you should think. And this means that we run easily into the strategic management trap because actions will be taken accordingly. We can separate internal and external implications of actions taken to change the resources and the processes used in the firm. And the second implication is a shift from focus on structure towards a focus on process. Now, what does this mean? A focus on structure means that what's important for a firm to be successful is to have the right functions taking care of the right activities, to have the organization scheme in such a manner that we can perform internally efficiently. And every business function can perform internally efficiently. Now, this focus on structure leads to sub-optimization. For example, we can keep costs down in the restaurant, but they will have problems for the customer. We can keep costs down in the kitchen, but that will indirectly, because the kitchen is a support function, will lead to problems with the customers. Customer feels lower quality and we will lose customers and money. So we must be careful here. And a move to service management means a move from being overly interested on how do we structure the firm and the management of the business functions, and go towards a process approach and saying, what are the processes that leads to revenues? What are the processes that makes the firm earn money? And how do these processes interrelate? In the restaurants, the kitchen with the restaurant, for example. To use this rather simple but quite typical and easy to understand example. So what we have to look at is the process. and the processes. And then, of course, structures are needed. We need some kind of organizational scheme, of course. But we have to remember that when we develop organizational solutions and when we develop management processes, we have to first of all think, how does this affect the process of earning money, the process of getting revenues? And then see how can we do it in as cost-efficient way as possible. And this also may sound, so maybe it's not such a big thing. It is a very big thing, because traditional management models makes managers think in terms of structure and not in terms of processes. Not always, of course, but far too often. And that has negative effects on how the service profit logic will work for us. It will work against us. Then another way of looking at this, based on this profit equation, revenues minus costs means profit, we can draw a quadrant here with two scales. One scale is revenues in the one end, which follows from perceived quality, and traditional productivity and costs in the other way of this scale, which is interest in revenues or interest in costs, meaning interest in perceived quality, customer perceived quality, or interest in traditional productivity management. And the other scale we can apply there is the interest of management on the firm's resources and processes, or is the interest of management in the customer's resources and processes? And if we then look at these two scales, we can think, where is a firm and its managers mentally? Is it mentally down here with an internal in the internal efficiency quadrant, where management's focus is on productivity and cost efficiency first, and is this dominating customers' managers' interest? Or is the mental model of managers and people in the firm, that is the attitudes, up here in the external effectiveness quadrant, when the dominant thinking is about how can we get revenues through understanding the customer's resources and processes? And we can find examples showing how it goes if a firm mentally is in the blue quadrant, external effectiveness quadrant, or in the red quadrant, internal efficiency quadrant. But let's not go into that now. The important thing is to realize it is a mental thing, this, an attitudinal thing. How do we think as managers in this firm? And if we make the strategic choice that we want to be a service business, then we make the choice that we want to support and facilitate our customers' practices, process activities with our resources and processes. That says that we have to start with understanding the customer thoroughly. Now that is what Apple did before they introduced iPhone, whereas the other mobile phone makers were more or less down here, understanding their own processes and how to make new technological solutions within the old frame with cost efficiency, without understanding properly the changes that had gone on in our minds as consumers. And that's why Apple almost overnight knocked everybody else down. Now, we think about moving then away, moving to the right attitude here. We can say that if we are down here in the red quadrant with interest predominantly on cost efficiency, internal efficiency, and our own, the firm's resource or processes, we have an inside-out management approach, meaning that we think that from managing the inside we're going to do well on the outside, meaning managing the inside we'll have customers. And then we rely on traditional marketing and sales, the marketing department and sales department, or however it is organized, to getting and keeping the customer. And it doesn't function, especially not in a service business. So we have to move up to the quadrant where we're interested in the customer's resource and processes first, and in how to get revenues first, and then adjust our own processes and our cost level to that. Because then we are thinking in terms of outside-in management and have an outside-in management focus in the firm with internal efficiency control again, of course, because otherwise it won't work. If costs just rise more than revenues, it's not a good idea anyway, even though we understand everything about our customers' processes. So we have to always keep in mind this internal efficiency. But it is a matter of management attitudes, the mental model we have. Do we start here saying the basis for success for the business is outside-in management and an outside-in management focus? And then we adjust our internal issues and our cost levels to that. Or do we think in terms of inside-out management? And if we do that, especially in a service business, it probably will lead to problems. And in the public sector, it leads to problems. So, what more in detail then are implications of a service management focus? There are a number of implications. So let's go through them briefly here. Number one relates to the interest in value. If we are a service firm, 1A on the slide, the shift here in management focus will be from thinking that value is embedded in the product or in the service activity plans we have for it, to thinking that what we have to manage is total what's called value in use for the customer. Now what this means is value in use is that customers perceive that when I use this service, I really become better off. It really helps me, it supports me, it makes me achieving my goals, however clearly I have them defined. So that is what value in use is. And traditional management looks at value. Well, value is having the good product or having good service activities. But the service approach says that value doesn't exist in products or in service activities as such. That's only potential value if we have prepared them well based on knowledge about the customer's processes and realities. Real value emerges as value in use when customers use products or use service activities. And if we looked at the product manufacturer clearly, we say that's 1B on the slide. There, its value is not in this gadget with which I move slides. Value is something I perceive when I can use it. And if I cannot use it, there's no value in that physical product. The other move here in interest, following from service management approaches, is from being interested in short-term transactions with customers toward long-term relationships with customers. Meaning the important thing is not to make customers buy. The most important thing is to make customers stay. Meaning to get repeat business. But of course, repeat business doesn't come unless we first get customers buy for the first time. So it's an interplay between traditional sales and marketing, and then what do other business functions do in terms of making sure the customer stays and wants to buy again and becomes loyal. In the marketing literature, it's called interactive marketing, which is the real marketing. And the traditional marketing by marketing departments is a support function, which is absolutely needed, but cannot take care of the total marketing process. If we rely only on traditional sales and marketing, the firm will rely on short transactions, and we will try to sell the same product, the same service over and over again to the same customer, and we will lose unnecessarily customers. You have to think in terms of long term, and that's why relationships and customers' relationships are an inherent part of the service perspective. And it's also a thinking about a change of focus from core product to total customer perceived quality. The change of focus from the core service product, for example, the beef in the restaurant I mentioned as an example earlier, to total perceived quality that the customer perceives. It's not enough that food is good. Service has to be good, atmosphere has to be good, fellow consumers have to be good, and so on and so forth. So it's a shift from just making sure that the core of a service process or the core of a product offering has quality. What else that's important for the customer has to be quality, of high quality as well. And this means that if we are thinking about coming to point 4 on the slide, to what really is important as approach to management, what's really the core of management here? It's not to manage the factory, to make sure that we can get out a high quality product from there. What's important is to manage the total perceived quality as perceived, of course, by the customers. So a product is not enough. Products have to be delivered. They have to be communicated about. They have to be perhaps recovered. We have to be able to answer questions where customers can't use it properly. And there's a number of other activities that are important for the customer's total perception of using this product that I bought from this particular firm, and do I want to continue to do business with that particular firm. So an interest in the total offering and the quality of total offering instead of managing the quality of bits and pieces like the product in the factory, and maybe we think about something else in quality terms as well. It's the total offering as perceived by the customer, be that a service firm's service offering or a product manufacturer's offering. So those are changes in focus in management. And all of these more or less says that go from looking at detailed parts to look at the total offering that you have. Don't look at customers' perception of some detail, the perception of the quality of a product. Look at the customer's perception of the total interaction with us. Go from looking at the short-term effects of what you're doing to the longer-term effects, because keeping customers is always more profitable. So, in short, it means a shift from inside-out management towards outside-in management. And just to conclude what that means. First of all, it means that think correctly. Semantics is very important in management, as everywhere. The way we are talking is based on the way we are thinking, and that has implications for what will the reactions, in this case by customers, be. So first thing is, to become a service business, you have to think about providing support to your customers, not delivering products or delivering services, service activities. You must think about how does this service activity or how does this physical product support the customer's practices and processes so that the customer will feel better off, achieve his/her organization's goals. So becoming a service business requires moving first mentally, and then in the way you are talking, the management jargon, and then in what you are planning on doing, moving from delivering products to providing support, regardless of whether you are a product manufacturer or a service firm. And the other thing is move from inside out talking to outside in talking and doing. So avoid product talking and thinking and doing. So many service firms talk about our products instead of talking about our services. Banks, insurance companies, these days even universities like to say that they have products. The effect that has mentally on people, on managerial level and on the level of those who are implementing this interactive with customers is that, okay, we have products, we probably have something like a gadget like this. And then we lose interest in what's around it. And everything that's what's around it is also important for the customer. So be careful with the way you are talking when you are getting in positions here to work as managers or as service employees or wherever you are. Use product talking, use service talking, service thinking and service doing instead of product talking, product thinking and product doing. And it goes in this way. If you talk in product terms, you're going to think in product terms and you're going to move down into the internal efficiency quadrant in the model I showed earlier. And if you use service talking, you are going to start thinking service and you are going to do service and you will move up into the external efficiency quadrant in your mental model and in your way you are working. And just finally, I've talked about service management and I've been talking about managing in various areas from a service perspective. But what I actually have been talking about all the time is marketing, because I have been talking about the customer. I'm talking about the effects on the customer of what the firm's doing based on the approach to how different business functions are managed. And all this, because of the service profit logic, has an effect on the customer's willingness to buy and buy continuously and become a loyal customer. And that is marketing. And the consequence of that is that we can't look at marketing in a service business as we traditionally do, as marketing is a specialist function. We can't talk about marketing management. It doesn't exist, because marketing management only makes the firm get customers, but it can't help the firm keep customers. So we have to talk about something else. Service management, which actually is an abbreviation or for customer-oriented management in service context. That's what it's all about, customer orientation in managing all business function and integrating them into one process which aims at making customers perceiving good quality. Then we will be successful. And finally, it is a saying that language used conditions what management sees and doesn't see, and how it interprets what it sees. So we have to be here careful. If we are in a service business, we need to talk service language. Thank you very much.